Hi, good morning. This is Anna Imagination with a Healing Garden. Welcome to Philosophical Coffee. This is downtime. This is me just kind of like, I need to take a break. If you are new to my work, I am a philosopher. Philosophy is the study and integration of all. Every subject that we have in the world is a subgenre of philosophy. People think that philosophy is a subject that is parallel to science, physics, math, and it's not. Physics, math, science, art, stage, theater are all subgenres to philosophy. They are all like philosophy is the master of all. The integration of all of this, philosophers then refer to as metaphysics and ontology. And then the next stage after that, philosophers refer to as psychantics, which is just another really fancy way of saying it is the integration and the study of all. It is literally an intellectual goal of obtaining the next greater whole. And the problem is a lot of people will start philosophy, they'll get 4 years into it, and they won't see the big picture. They'll just see fractions. So they'll walk away going, oh, philosophy is this. And then you'll have somebody who goes in and they study 1 year of philosophy. Oh, philosophy is this. And then you have people who go in and they study 10 years and they go, oh, philosophy is this. I have done 30 plus years in philosophy. Philosophy is the study, the integration of all. Because when you get to 20 years of philosophy, you switch over to studying physics. And when you get done with physics, then you switch over to neuroscience. And when you get done with neuroscience, you switch over to chemistry. You are not supposed to learn these things at the same time, like our education system teaches. You are supposed to learn them in a ladder method so that you binge and gorge on just one subject, and then you binge and gorge on the next, and then the next. The first subject, the first stage of philosophy is art. It's all the arts, which is why I have 20 years in theater and stage. What I don't tell people is I stopped studying theater and stage back in my 20s, and then I switched over to linguistic psychology and communications, geometry, and physics. And then I switched over into the harder sciences. So it goes in 3 stages with philosophy. You have the arts, all of the arts. And then from the arts, you move over into physics, which is the bridge. Physics and math is the bridge, and you get into communications. And all you study is communications. And the communications consists of logic, math, linguistics, the etymology of words, and did I say logic? Logic. And then, so it's physics, math, logic, and language. Those are the 4 communications. And that partners up. It's a bridge between the art, which is the writing, the reading, so that you're starting the communications there, and then it bridges into the communications of math, language, logic, and physics, which is also a language. And then the third, I really hate this mirror image. And then the third stage is the sciences, which is physics, chemistry, astronomy. It's when you start stacking all the sciences. So that by the time you get to the end, you are like, all right, I got this. It's stacked and it's piled. So physics is the foundation for chemistry. Chemistry is the foundation for astronomy. Astronomy is the foundation of metaphysics. And that is the foundation of my AIDS. That's where this shit is. And then the AIDS is the foundation of the human atom. And that is the foundation of, I don't know, that's where my studies left off. So, but underneath all of that, music, by the way, is the first study. Music is the first. Woo-hoo! Music is the first. Music is the foundation of all. Pythagoras was right. It was extraordinary. Pythagoras said that the planets are just musical instruments and musical pieces, and it's all a song that's just shifting and moving, and we are just music. I agree, 100%. Music is the very first subject, and it is the foundation of all, which is why children dance and they play drums. It's why cavemen played the drums. It's also why we have stories and paintings. It's not paintings, it's actually stories on the cave walls. They're telling story. So when you get into storytelling, when you get into music and the arts, painting, it's all just a variation of story. And that is the foundation for communication, which is the foundation of science, which is something that Einstein and Tesla raved about endlessly, which is, I agree with them. But the problem is people don't have this perspective. So when a physicist who hasn't studied anything prior just studies physics, they are lacking massive, massive foundation to their education. A chemist who doesn't study any of those subjects prior is missing out massive, massive information. A psychologist falls right between physics and chemistry. Right there. You've got physics and chemistry. A psychologist is right there. So a psychologist should be studying everything from physics and down. It's just extraordinary. It's a completely different concept of understanding how the mind perceives story, how it all fits together. So it's like reading the seventh Harry Potter book and not reading any of the other books. That's exactly what it is. And you've got all these different peoples with all these different professions who've studied all of these different things, but they may have studied the fourth Harry Potter book. They may have read the seventh Harry Potter book, but only the seventh and only the fourth. Or then there's people who are like, okay, you're going to have to read the books all at the same time, equally, side by side. So you're reading the first, the second, the third right next to each other. It's going to change your perspective of it. Whereas Plato said, no, you read book 1 first and in order, and then you read book 2 first and in order, and then you read book 3 first and then in order. And as you do that, you build on what the foundation is. But every subject in the world is connected and is a foundation of another subject. And in philosophy, we know this. But if you quit 4 years in, you miss the big picture. You're not seeing it. If you quit 10 years in, you've missed the point. If you quit 20 years in, you've missed the point. And the problem that philosophers have today is because the people who put together the philosophical programs are not processing this. They're not taking it into account because it requires somebody with 30 plus years in philosophy with the big picture to understand, oh, this is what everything looks like. And people aren't willing to study the metaphysics. People aren't willing to study the neuroscience of philosophy. People aren't willing to study the logic and the physics of philosophy. I am a philosopher. That's what I am. I am a logician and a philosopher. I am a teacher. That is what I am. And I've had people go, well, you're not a physicist. Do you know what philosophy is? Because a philosopher is a physicist and a neuroscientist and a teacher and a psychologist and an ontologist. And we are taught how to integrate all of these things together into one vast subject called philosophy. So yes, absolutely. Can you be a master of all of these? Yeah, we call those Renaissance men or philosophers. And because we know how to access our higher thinking, we know how to do this in a very short period of time. Once upon a time, 2,000 years ago, this was done normally, regularly, and all the time. We grossly we live in a glass box that is so small and so disgusting, and it's killing us. I can't stand the small glass box that everyone lives in. The small glass box that everyone lives in has a lot of rules to it. And the first rule is you can't learn. The second rule is you can only learn one small subject and only for 4 to 2 years and only for a very small period of your life, and expect to be bad at it. Well, that's a bunch of incompetent teachers and incompetent governments lying to you about what the brain is actually capable of doing. And because we're all looking at all the other monkeys, looking at how everyone else is, we assume that this is the way it is. But then you have someone like Da Vinci who pops up. And I'm going, yeah, he's the norm. Da Vinci is what's possible when no one tells you that you can and can't do something. Da Vinci is who we all should be, who we all can be. And there's nothing special about Da Vinci, really. He just followed a different educational program than the rest of us. When you follow a different educational program than what the government gives you, you end up with different results. And a few of us have challenged the government, have gone out of their way of saying, yeah, you guys don't know a goddamn thing about education. I'm going to go do my own thing over here. And we do, and we're walking away as super geniuses. we're not really super geniuses. We're just know how to learn properly, as opposed to a system that's completely garbage. So once you understand where the system is horribly lacking and where it actually is proper, you fix it, you tweak it, you make a little adjustment, and it works. It works beautifully. They don't know how to use the mind properly. Our educational system is literally built on the concept of a bunch of people who don't know how to use the human mind properly because they never studied psychology. They never studied the right psychology. They never studied philosophy. So as a result, it's a bunch of uneducated fourth perspective people assuming they know how to educate people when they know nothing about education. Because why is everyone walking away with a dumbed down imagination? Imagination is vital to survival in life. So as far as I'm concerned, they have failed at their job, which makes them the opposite of an expert. So I am currently at a shifting point. I'm not at a shifting point. I'm at my intuition screamed at me yesterday and said, "All right, everyone, we are changing direction on this ship." And I went, "Okay." So she went in this whole other place, and I have my physics books coming today. I'm so excited. I have 3 physics books coming today. So I am a book learner. I have to have the physical book in my hand, like sit down and actually do the work. And then I need like paper. I'm old school. It's how I upload data into my brain. And when I realized this, I went ahead and ordered some physics books, like hardcore physics. And I'm like, yes. So, well, some of it's hardcore, some of it's not. And then I'm going to be doing the hardcore stuff. So I'm very, very excited. It was so funny. When I was a kid, my teacher would circle the page number. Maybe I should do that. Play with my brain a little bit. I know exactly how to Pavlov dog my brain on this one. Hold on a minute. This was a little thing my teachers would do every day that I went into. I used to attend a parochial school. And the parochial school worked like this. It was DIY learning. That's why and how I know how to learn, is because I had DIY self-teaching from kindergarten all the way up to 6th grade. And then when I got out of, DIY self-teaching. So they would sit down and they would circle the page number at the top. And that was where I was supposed to read to that day. And I would read anticipating that circled page. And then I would get to the circled page and I'd be like, yay! So I looked up. My daughter's putting together a puzzle. We have puzzles all over the house because puzzles are a huge part of the brain's learning mechanism. And I looked up what's going on inside the brain when you put a puzzle together. Apparently, it activates the reward centers of your brain. So every time you put in the right piece, you get a shot of dopamine in your brain. And it's a 1,000-piece puzzle, which means every time we click a piece, our brain goes, yay, reward center. Now, this is really, really vital because reward centers of your brain are very much linked to everything. They are linked to your scarcity mindset. They are linked to your abundance mindset. They are linked to your reward centers, to your motivation centers, to your, oh, that felt good, let's rinse and repeat it. So if you have a deficit of feeling reward, put a puzzle together and it will literally dose you with reward centers. Now, when you do this, you can Pavlov dog yourself, which I've been doing to my daughter without her knowing it. I love you. What I have been doing is spending time with her while she puts the puzzle together on purpose to condition learning with family mother time. Now she has a psychological attachment, understanding, and connection to maternal time with nurturing with a reward center. That's right. So that now when she learns, it's actually enjoyable, nourishing, comforting, loving, and she's getting a shot of dopamine. In addition to that, it's also fun. We're watching TV while we have it going on, and we are playing games and have chess going. All of this is coming around to recondition the trauma out of you so that you associate joy and love with learning instead of trauma. And that reconditions her brain to then turn on and go, learning is good, learning is fun, Learning is associated now with my mother. Very fucking powerful shit, which reverses the trauma. So that in about 2 weeks to a month, she's going to love and enjoy learning. Really, when you connect the maternal concept of learning and joy with comfort, oh my God, that's a powerful chemical reaction. So, trying to do it with yourself. See, I had it with that little circled page every time I read, every time I did anything, I had that circled page. And every time I saw that circled page number, it was such a reward for me. It wasn't so much what I was reading, it was just getting to that page. But because I had the anticipation of accomplishment of getting to that page that was circled, it was all the chemicals that I needed in my brain to be heightened up and excited for the experience so that it absorbed into me. It was a beautiful Pavlov Doggian response. Absolutely, it was absolutely beautiful. Classical conditioning is easily one of the most basic tools of psychology in the human mind. It's done whether we want it done or not. It's there whether or not we want it. It's manipulative when it's done maliciously. It's manipulative when it's controlled, when it's done with poor intent. And that is a huge classical conditioning is what was done to us when we were traumatized. And it takes classical conditioning to reverse it. Whether it's done intellectually, knowledgeably, accidentally. The problem is the subconscious mind blocks and it fights and it resists because it's been traumatized. And getting around a subconscious mind is one of the hardest things to cope with because the subconscious mind is almost always at first smarter than us. So you have to literally outsmart your own subconscious mind to get around it. Classical conditioning allows us to do that. But the moment the subconscious mind is aware of the ploy, it resists it. And it doesn't do it. So it's vital to do it without the subconscious mind being aware of it. It's exactly like a placebo effect. When you tell somebody, it's Dumbo all over again. It's you didn't need the feather to fly. You can just fly. The feather was never it. It was you. And when the belief system is so controlled by the logic, not the logic, but the subconscious mind, that you are up against this master logic player in your mind. And if you are not consciously aware of logic, and this is just it, there is subconscious logic and then there's conscious aware logic. And conscious aware logic has to be better at logic than the subconscious mind logic. And if it's not, game over. But if you are better at logic than your subconscious mind will feed off of it. It needs it. It wants it. It requires it. But you have to be able to outmaneuver your own subconscious mind first. And here's the problem. The better you become at logic, the better the subconscious mind becomes at logic. This is why I'm so good at logic, is because I had to out-logicize 4 alters who were fucking good at logic. And their safety depended on it. So I had to want more than they were afraid. And it was this massive chess set between the 5 of us while we all tried to outmaneuver each other. Because they wouldn't believe that they could be better. The conscious mind did. because the belief system is based off of fear, proof of concept, misinformation, logical fallacy. The conscious awareness is not. The conscious awareness has the ability to separate itself from the logical fallacy and says, no, I'm not going to use that logical fallacy belief system that's fear-based. I'm going to use the logic-based belief system. And that is where the conscious awareness gains the upper hand. That the conscious awareness can say, I'm not going to have a fear-based belief system. I'm going to circumvent that with a logic-based belief system. I'm putting things together for the money trauma that I have for tomorrow. And also, I had a conversation with a gentleman in the subway yesterday, and he looked like a homeless man. He saw the book I was reading, and he immediately engaged with me and wanted to jump into conversation. And he surprised me. It's one of the hardest things that I have is when I look at people and they look like they're homeless. They look like they're destitute. And he was carrying on a conversation with me about mind control, neuroscience, and physics. On the other hand, I was standing there wearing a crown, a red coat, and dressed as a hippie. And we both had a moment of, oh, you're smart under all of that. And I realized that my limiting belief right now is that people don't want to get better. People don't want to learn. They don't want to. And I realized it's because they have a limiting belief that they don't think they can learn. And I interpret their belief that they can learn, belief that they can save themselves, belief that they can heal. And I interpret that as they don't want to. And that is my limiting belief. So sometimes when I come on here, I'm going, they don't want to learn. And the problem is they don't believe they can. Now, as a psychologist, as a philosopher, I can see how those people I feel like I'm solving this massive logic puzzle right now. I am. To circumvent this logical fallacy in my mind, the problem is the teacher. The teacher's job is to inspire the desire to learn. I believe that they have to inspire the belief that they can. Oh, I absolutely believe that they can because I know how the mind works. They don't. Most people don't know how it works. Most people have no idea that you have to learn how to use your mind. This is such a baffling foreign concept to people. Oh my God, how do I lose? You know what? That's it right there. That's really what I'm up against. People do not believe that they can learn. I know that they can. I know that the brain wants to. I know that they're craving it. I know that that's a core to their problem. We have a lot of teaching and learning trauma in this country that no one's talking about. Our money trauma is connected to it. Everyone's talking about the abuse trauma, but no one's talking about the teaching trauma, the learning trauma. Yeah, we'll talk about money trauma, because money trauma is really scarcity trauma. It's resource trauma. The thing is, knowledge is a resource. Your problem isn't money trauma, it's resource trauma. Yeah, we're going to talk about this tomorrow a lot. We're going to talk about your trauma with teaching and learning, education trauma. Because if you can get inspired to learn, learning is problem solving. That's really what it is. Learning is problem solving. It was one of my case studies, my first case study. She would not problem solve. I was watching her, and it was extraordinary to watch her. She would immediately default to catastrophe every time. Never problem solving. Over and over again. I kept going over everything with her. She was doing great. But as soon as a problem came up, she shut down and she switched over to catastrophe. She flopped onto the floor and became a victim every time. And I'm looking at her going, interesting. Why? Because whatever is in her head, and it's the same thing, it's in so many of us. Now, it's something I never had, because I was abused in such a way where it didn't matter if I fell apart or not. I was going to get beaten. It didn't matter if I fought back, I was going to get beaten. It didn't matter if I fell apart, I was going to get beaten. It didn't matter if I ran away, I was going to get beaten. Didn't matter. So flopping was not a safe place for me. Flopping was not safe. The only time I was ever safe is when I fought back and I got smart. That was the only safe place for me. I associated safety with learning. It became my obsession. It became my drug, because if I was learning, I was safe, because then I could out chess play anybody. And I did. And that's how I got away. The problem is I attracted some really fucking intelligent people, vile and educated people. So I had to get really fucking good at chess. So the education trauma and the learning trauma shuts down the problem solving inside of a person's brain, because problem solving is learning. It's the difference between I can't. I can't really means I can't learn. And that usually means I don't know how. I do. And when you can't learn, when you believe you can't learn, you don't try. And the reason why you're not learning is because you have education trauma. Because learning equals pain or trauma. I was talking to a friend of mine this morning, and I said, psychology breaks down to 3 problems over and over again. They don't know how to comfort themselves. They don't know how to learn. They believe they can't save themselves. And they believe they can't learn. Now, if they could learn, then they could save themselves. But you can't learn unless you comfort yourself. So if you know how to comfort yourself, then you can activate the learning skill, and then you can save yourself. It goes comfort, learn, save. Comfort, learn, save. You know what? That's going to be my next series. Comfort, learn, save. That is going to be my next series starting tomorrow. Comfort, learn, save. Because that's it. You don't learn unless you feel safe enough to learn. You don't feel safe enough to learn unless you comfort yourself. Learning is problem solving. Your problem is not all of your problems. Your problem is you don't know how to solve problems. And literally, solving problems is a trauma for you. That is it. Wow. When you have a learning or an education trauma, you also have a problem-solving trauma, which is why you have so many problems. It is because you have a problem-solving trauma, which is an education and learning-based trauma. How was school for you? Traumatic? School fucking shootings. Yeah, we have a learning and education trauma. All right. So if we correct the learning education trauma, it will correct the problem-solving trauma. When it corrects the problem-solving trauma, your problems go away. Comfort, learn, save. Okay. This is going to be a very short session. I just needed to jump on and say hi, and this is it. But yeah, I'm going to go ahead and take the morning for myself and write my books and lounge. So thank you so much, and I will speak to you tomorrow. May the kindest of words always find you.